Not many fire-type Pokemon were introduced in Pokemon Sun and Moon. There's only 5 fully evolved fire types in the 7th generation, so we're going to see if that actually changes anything for a top 10 list. Now, we do have Pokemon like Marowak that are pretty strong in Alolan form, and also with the nerfs to Talonflame, something should be happening, so there is justification for updating a top 10 fire-type Pokemon in the 7th generation. Now, before the video begins, do want to shout out to Will Candle on Twitter. I messed up. I scheduled the video at the wrong time. It published when I didn't want it to. I privated it, deleted it off YouTube, but the problem is my hard drive is almost full, so I didn't have a copy anywhere, and this is technically the second version of the Pokemon Sun and Moon Top 10, and Will Candle actually remembered the list for me, which made my life a lot easier since I didn't archive that as well. Please don't judge me too well, especially since I'm using Windows Movie Maker for all my videos. But anyway, I do remember that Salazzle is number 10 on the list, and that's because of the corrosion ability, its speed, and it just brings a lot of really cool things to the table. Now, unfortunately, it's a very frail Pokemon, so it almost always needs that Focus Sash, but then it just sets up a nasty plot, dunks everything with a Flamethrower or Fire Blast, and then after that, you can run just the Sludge Bomb or Sludge Wave for that dual stab coverage, and then we can even run Toxic. So it's one of those weird sweeping Pokemon that actually uses Toxic. And it works. Like, that's kind of like the crazy thing to think about because of that corrosion ability, and this is one of the biggest things out there, because whenever you're a stalling tank Pokemon and you're Steel type, you don't worry about getting Toxic. Same with Poison. You don't worry about that. Sure, it's okay if you get burned and you can deal with that little bit of damage, but not a lot of Pokemon run the rest. Not a lot of Pokemon are going to do anything that can remove the Toxic. They just expect, alright, never going to get Toxic, I can recover through anything, and then we're going to be good to go. Well, Salazzle tears that apart. Salazzle comes in, Toxic something, and then if it doesn't get blown up, you know, it can switch out, and now that tank is ruined. That Pokemon's day is done, and also on the sweeping side, it's not bad at all. 117 on the speed. I'd prefer something just a little faster, that way it doesn't get absolutely destroyed by a Greninja, but at the same time, this is kind of all you need. It outspeeds 115 base speed Pokemon. It's on par with a lot of other really fast sweeping Pokemon. So it outspeeds, nasty plot, hits the Focus Sash, outspeeds again, starts KOing things. Unless it gets outsped, doesn't have to worry, and even then, it can shut down tank and stall Pokemon as well, so Salazzle is pretty solid. Number 9 on the list is going to be the Alolan Marowak. Now, these are the only 2 7th generation Pokemon on the list, and they're kind of up there on the list as well. Just kind of showing that there's not a lot of fire strength introduced in the 7th generation, nothing game-breaking like the Toxapex, but they at least get some representation. Now, some people would argue that Marowak could be lower on the list, and I agree to a point that Marowak does work in the meta, but it needs a lot of support. It needs to be on a Trick Room team where it can really excel, and also Knockoff completely trashes it. Maybe that's kind of it. That it needs the Thick Club to double its attack, and it would prefer Trick Room, and then it just one-shots everything. So it does need a little bit of care, and it does have really good coverage as well, that we're sitting on Earthquake, we're sitting on Boomerang, so it remembers a little bit of its Cubone past life before it died and became a Fire Ghost in the Alola region, or something like that. Also, Fire Ghost is going to be a pretty awesome coverage setup, especially you can go with the Flare Blitz on the Rockhead ability, and now everything dies, you don't have to worry about recoil, so as long as that Trick Room is up, or as long as you're not taking too much damage while getting outsped, you can just beat a lot of Pokemon down. Overall, it's a pretty solid Pokemon to run on a team. It can get outsped, it can get overwhelmed, especially with a lot of weaknesses, but at the same time, it can be absolutely devastating under a Trick Room, so it belongs somewhere on a top 10 Fire-type Pokemon list. Number 8 on the list is going to be Typhlosion. Now, Typhlosion is a Pokemon that's always been really scary because a 109 special attacking Pokemon with that Eruption is going to absolutely shred, and it did get the Flash Fire hidden ability, which would just make it even more devastating. That if you run something that is weak to the fire like a Ferrothorn on your team, and then you can predict like a Hidden Power Fire or anything like that, you just switch in Typhlosion, you gain 50% more damage on your already insane Eruption, and then you just one-shot things until the end of time. Now, the only thing really holding Typhlosion back is going to be its speed. 100 base speed, that speed ties with a lot of Pokemon, and because of introduction throughout other generations, you know, 5th generation, 6th, 7th, a lot of Pokemon now just outspeed Typhlosion, and getting outsped when using Eruption is a really bad thing. Now, Typhlosion does have an insane amount of damage, also can run the Hidden Power, that way can round out its coverage, but pretty much if you've taken a lot of damage, Typhlosion has a little bit of durability. 78 on the hit points, 78 defense, 85 special defense. It's slightly above average, or at least on average with a lot of sweeping Pokemon, so it has a solid chance to just survive a neutral hit, in which case you can switch it out, bring it back in, and then use something like the Overheat. It can keep throwing out the Overheat until it dies, but still a lot of damage, has a chance to one-hit KO quite a few Pokemon, and then it's still getting damage down, so that's an option on the Typhlosion. Can also run the Blast Burn. The idea is you come in with a 150 base power move, nuke out the opponent, win the game, GG just like that, or you just trade 1 for 1 when the Eruption has kind of failed you, and you're on low hit points as well. Number 7 on the list is going to be Infernape. So, Infernape has Fake Out, and it also just has like a lot of really cool things that it can use as well. Close Combat's insane amount of damage. Earthquake's really high amounts of damage. Has the Flare Blitz if it wants to run that, or it can also use Fire Punch, and yeah, as long as it doesn't get outsped, it's going to do fine. Has a 108 on the base speed, so unfortunately you're going to be outsped by 110, 115, and anything faster than that. Fake Out Close Combat is absolutely devastating with the rest of your coverage. Also, Infernape works really well in Double Battle. Same for Typhlosion, because just the sheer amount of Eruption damage. But when you have Infernape, it fakes out something, and then just becomes a damage support with good coverage, and it can nuke out whatever it needs to, and then provide a lot of other aid for the team. If you have a faster Pokemon next to it that's also scoring KOs, you can dominate Double Battles with the Infernape pretty well. Also, it does get some access to guard moves, so if it wants to use the Quick Guard, yeah, you can stop out priority, become priority yourself, have a little bit of support surprise that the opponent might not suspect, and then that's when you can just go Dual Stab, Close Combat, Flare Blitz, destroy everything. So there's a little bit that Infernape can do. Also, as a Fire-type Pokemon, can't get burned, so it's a really safe physical Pokemon to be running in quite a few situations. Number 6 on the list is going to be Torkoal. So Torkoal, it's just doing great right now. Torkoal's happy in the 7th generation. Actually, Torkoal made it on my top 10 Fire-type Pokemon list originally, and now it's just even better. So we have the Drought ability, just immediately setting Sun. So now you don't have to bring the Ninetales. You can run a tanky, defensive, bulky Pokemon like the Torkoal that also synergizes with Trick Room. Another Pokemon that gets Eruption, so it can go Protect on Trick Room turn into Eruption while having the Sun up, and then that's going to be a 50% damage boost. So it actually turns out to do more damage than the Typhlosion, as long as that Eruption is not getting stopped. Also, just as a tanky Pokemon, does a lot of crazy things. Has the Yawn, has Clear Smog. You can do all kinds of things. Like in my video, I talked about how you can go for the Yawn Protect combo and then have Stealth Rocks up and then just kind of stall through your opponent. Now you can do that with Drought. Now you can also just kind of sprinkle in some other damage. Earth Power is really strong against a lot of Pokemon. So Torkoal just finds ways to work, and it looks like it's the new Drought baby. Everyone's running instead of Ninetales. Whenever we're not dealing with a legendary format, we don't have the Groudon, so Torkoal got a nice little buff. We're seeing like Torkoal Lilligant combos. Overall, everyone's happy right now, and Torkoal is doing just fine. Number 5 on the list is going to be the Arcanine. So Arcanine is like always in the meta just because it has good stats, and mostly in double battles. In double battles, you can run Intimidate. Now, you can go for double Intimidate, you can go for triple Intimidate, you can also go for some special defense investment on the Arcanine. It runs the Will-O-Wisp. So pretty much, whenever you bring Arcanine in a double battle, you're saying, you are not allowed to physically attack me. That's pretty much it. Arcanine is the ultimate denier. If you pair it with a Gyarados, you have good type coverage right there, as well as defensive coverage, and you can just double Intimidate, shut down anything physical the opponent's trying to do, bring a special defense tank, and Arcanine is going to do really well. Also has the Morning Sun, and just good stats. It has a 110 on the attack, 95 on the speed, so with the changes in Pokemon Sun and Moon, I know I've been talking about like sweeping and needing like a 110, 115, or even more speed than that, but on the reverse side of this, Arcanine's still got a little bit of natural bulk, still does damage, and it doesn't need to be a sweeper, so 95 speed hits that other end. Now it's outspeeding all the tanks. Now it's shutting down a lot of that and still fighting crazy amounts of damage. Does have Flare Blitz, just, it does whatever it wants. Has Wild Charge if it needs to hit a Water-type Pokemon as well. And that just shuts you down, sustains up, and does pretty well. So Arcanine's really beastly, and that's why it is going to be number 5 on the list. Number 4 on the list is going to be the Chandelure. So Chandelure, it just hits too hard. It's a 145 special attack Pokemon on that 80 base speed. So pretty much you go the Timid Nature, you throw down Choice Scarf, and then everything dies. Or you can even run, not Silk Scarf, Choice Scarf. Or you can even run a bulkier set. So you can either see choice specs with max hit point investment, or and that's a modest nature, so you're just putting so much more damage onto the opponent. That choice spec Chandelure neutrally one hit KOs a lot of things. It can run that Fire Blast, can run the Heat Wave, can run whatever damage that it's looking for, does find the Shadow Ball, and this is what makes it so devastating. We have Fire, we have Ghost coverage. It can run Clear Smog. Now, that's not really the best thing on choice, but if it needs to come in and clear out like that, it can. Has the Energy Ball as well as a Hidden Power. So then you just throw in Hidden Power Ice, and now you have a full offensive Chandelure that's going to hit things super effective. Whatever isn't getting hit super effective is taking absurd amounts of damage from that 145 on the special attack with Stab. Also has Flash Fire, so if you get that Fire type switch in, like that's the thing about Chandelure. Whenever you see a Chandelure on the opponent's team, just never use Fire type moves. That gives them a lot of safety, but you don't want to charge up a Chandelure even more, because if it's using Fire Blast or Flamethrower, depending on the accuracy, you know, 85% accuracy, not the best to gamble on all the time, but I mean, if you have Flamethrower and a Flash Fire boost on a Choice Scarf Chandelure, it's outspeeding everything you got, and it's going to one-shot it on that Flamethrower unless you heavily resist it, or you have a dedicated special defense tank. The Mantine does come in and work pretty well now, but Mantine just kind of shuts down all special attackers that aren't electric. Either way, that's going to be the breakdown that we have, and Chandelure just does a lot of damage, has Minimize. I mean, sometimes you just see like stall-ish Chandelure. You know, it does have solid hit point defense. 60 on the hit points, could be better, but 90 on defenses with Minimize and Leftovers or some kind of sustain, and that just pummels in damage while also running the Calm Mind. It's scary, it's unpredictable, it can bust down your tanks. Like, if you're trying to out-tank it, yeah, you bring in that special defense tank because you think Chandelure's popping off. Next thing you know, Minimize, Calm Mind, and now you can't do anything to it. So Chandelure is pretty crazy. Number 3 on the list is going to be Blaziken. Now, I recently did a Blaziken guide. Mega Blaziken doesn't really get too many changes in Pokemon Sun and Moon. The buffs to the speed of Mega Pokemon don't really affect that 100 base speed as much as it does, or as much as you would expect at least, and then we can just run the regular Blaziken. Also, regular Blaziken getting a nice buff in the 7th generation, so there's all kinds of fun things going on with the Blaziken. That can use Flying EMZ, it can use Fire EMZ, and it just destroys a lot of things. Like, you go Fire EMZ, Flare Blitz, and nothing really survives that. Now, you do have to run the Protect on the Blaziken. I think that that's like the one fault in Blaziken, is that with that 80 base speed, have to Protect, have to run that Jelly Nature, or else you're just too at risk of being exploited by other Scarf Pokemon or something like that. And then you just destroy everything after that. Fire EMZ into the Flare Blitz, into the Overheat, going to do a lot of damage. Blaziken can double down as a special attacker as well. I mean, it's just a 120 attack, 110 attack Pokemon. It can go Life Orb, make sure everything dies off Flare Blitz from there, and then it even gets a high jump kick. So you can also go the Fight EMZ, high jump kick, not worry about the opponent's Protect, not worry about anything, and just go into the raw damage. Also high amounts of Stab. So that's the Blaziken. It does crazy things. Can find an extra coverage move to throw in. Sometimes it's Focus Sash. It can Baton Pass all those speed boosts. It can run the Swords Dance. It can run the Bulk Up. It can go Flying EMZ into the Mirror move. So Z Mirror move for +2 on the attack. Copy the move. Turn it around. One-shot you. Get the speed boost. One-shot you again. Baton Pass +2 attack, +2 speed. And it just went like +20. So Blaziken, very scary Fire-type Pokemon, but at the same time, it feels like it does fall flat in some situations, that if you know what the Blaziken can do, and you're ready for the Blaziken, or it just comes in at the wrong time because it's forced to respawn in an awkward situation, you just one-shot it. You can just deal with the Blaziken in a lot of situations, and that's kind of what I have to say about Blaziken at number 3 on the list, as a big truck just drives by my house. Number 2 on the list is going to be Volcarona. Volcarona, reason why it's number 2. People might disagree. A lot of people can agree it's top 10. Many people can still agree it's top 5. But the reason why, Quiver Dance is the best move in all of Pokemon. +1 attack, +1 speed, +1 special defense. Pokemon going +3, and then getting tankier. So Volcarona is fairly absurd with that. And that has a 135 on special attack. And that has a 100 on base speed. So you Quiver Dance once, you're outspeeding everything, you're one-shotting everything, and you still have some pretty solid stats. So that's Volcarona. You run like Citrus Berry, you survive a hit, you can do all kinds of fun stuff like that. Now you can run a couple different ways as well. So you go Bug Buzz, Fiery Dance. Fiery Dance, still very OP because you're gaining stab and there's a 50% chance to raise your special attack. So you come in, set up a Quiver Dance, kill something on the Fiery Dance, now you're at +2 as well, and then you just do more and more damage until the opponent goes away, and it gets access to the Giga Drain, so it has built-in sustain, or if it wants to, it can roost on a bulkier set with a Citrus Berry and try to get as much setup as possible. Because what you could also do is go for high defensive investment, high hit point investment, and just work on surviving everything, and then good amount of special attack investment or something like that. You know, you can do a lot of weird things on the Volcarona. Now instead of going +1 Quiver Dance in the sweep, you go +2 Quiver Dance, still outspeed pretty much everything, and now you're just really bulky. So you can survive long enough to get the +2, use Roost, Quiver Dance, Roost, Quiver Dance, Bug Buzz, Fire Dance, win. That's the thing about Volcarona, it can sweep. It is one of the most devastating, hardest sweeping Fire-type Pokemon, and that's one of the biggest things I take into consideration. Can this Pokemon 6-0? If this Pokemon has like a high late game sweeping potential, or just can come in and shut anything down, like Volcarona. Volcarona goes against a tank and you give it 1 turn of setup, there's a good chance you've lost the battle. And because of that, I think it's a very scary Pokemon. Always have to be aware of it. Number 2 on the list because of that. But it's not as devastating as Charizard. And, you know, Charizard Y, I'd put it maybe top 3, top 4 Fire-type Pokemon. But Charizard X, and I mean also Charizard Y, another drought Pokemon. In doubles, Charizard Y is an absolute monster. You give it any kind of speed, or you just outspeed anything, and it's going to one-shot. You have high amount of special attack under the sun, with huge flamethrower damage, and it's still a solid amount of speed. What you can do with the Charizard Y is like even Dragon Dance just for the speed, and then nuke everything out. You can go Tailwind setup, you can have something protecting you, it's like fake out Tailwind, keep Charizard alive, one-shot everything under fire with Heat Wave, double Heat Wave damage stacking. Charizard Y is ridiculous, but then Charizard X. Charizard X, pretty good bulky stats, survives on those defenses, 130 on the attack, also has tough claws, so Charizard X is another scary Pokemon, 100 on that special, it comes in, it Dragon Dances once, and then everything dies. You can't really wall it out because Earthquake breaks down a lot of powerful tanks out there, but also Flare Blitz. I mean, we have Flare Blitz, 120 base power, stab, tough claws boost on the Dragon Dance on a 130 attacking Pokemon. It's just over after that. Then you can run the Dragon Claw, a little bit of extra coverage, hit Dragon-type Pokemon, do some things right there, or even the Roost. So it does have enough bulk to where Charizard X gets away with the Roost. You know, if they try to bring in a tanky Pokemon or something setting up defenses, or you try to just stall it out a bit and regain ground and get some momentum, Charizard can just out-Roost and then stack more Dragon Dances and then win even harder. So that's the kind of thing about Charizard. Like, you need a dedicated defensive tank that can specifically deal with the Charizard X, or else if it shows up, you're at very high risk of just getting outsped, outswept, outwrecked, and then just the utility. You know, is it Charizard X or Charizard Y? You think it's Charizard X, you switch into defense tank, it's Charizard Y, now they exploit your low special defense, and you die anyways. So Charizard just has the really good coverage that knocks everything down. Fire Dragon also doesn't have too many weaknesses. It still is susceptible to quite a bit, but it loses like a lot of the Dragon weakness. Oh, Ice doesn't work. Oh, Fairy doesn't work. Well, Fire. Well, now Water doesn't work. So it gets a really interesting typing on that Fire Dragon, and then it just wrecks everything. And sometimes you can't even one-shot it. Can't even one-shot the Charizard while it's one-shotting you. How's that fair? Well, that's why it's number 1 list. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.